Greetings to all and a warm welcome to our latest live webcast, Lost Licenses, Smart Strategies for Recovery and Control. We're thrilled you've decided to join us for this enlightening masterclass. With each episode, we provide new highlights, technical tips, and success stories that will leave you inspired and ready to get your protection, licensing, and security techniques another step closer to perfection. At WIBU-SYSTEMS, we empower software publishers and intelligent device manufacturers with cutting-edge technologies, new business models, and tailor-made consulting training. Let us help you upgrade, optimize, and automate your entire license lifecycle management so you can focus on monetizing your business at a higher level. My name is Daniela Previtali, Global Marketing Director of WIBU-SYSTEMS, and I'm delighted to have you here with us today. We are joined by Rüdiger Kügler, VP Professional Services and Security Expert, and Jörg Jans, Professional Services, both from the headquarters of WIBU-SYSTEMS. To give you a roadmap for today's session, here is what we'll be covering. CodeMeter delivers flexible technologies to manage lost licenses securely and efficiently. Vendors can define automated processes or require manual approval, apply Blacklist, withdraw or deactivate compromised CmContainers, and configure recovery for single licenses or entire containers. Each container type is supported. CmCloudContainers are safeguarded by credential control, where CM licenses enable specific rules for recovery on the same or new hardware. This ensures transparent, reliable, and controlled license handling. Before we dive into the content, let's quickly address a few housekeeping items. For all of you tuning in today, we set aside a special segment at the end of the session exclusively for Q&A. We warmly encourage you to drop your questions into the live chat box as they come to mind. If we can't get to your question during the live discussion, rest assured we'll make it a priority to engage with you individually at a later time to address your queries. This session is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand replay will be sent straight to your inbox within the next couple of days. This way, you can revisit the insights shared today at your leisure. And don't forget, stick around for the entire live session and seize the opportunity to win an invaluable 4 hours of personalized CodeMeter consultation with our industry-leading experts. As the webinar concludes, a new browser tab will automatically open, presenting you with a quick quiz. We'll randomly select a lucky winner from those who answer correctly and make the big announcement when we release the webinar replay. Kindly note that if you win, you'll be ineligible for any other prize draws we host in 2025. Be also aware that this brief questionnaire includes additional questions aimed at gauging the quality of this masterclass. While these questions are optional, your valuable feedback will empower us to enhance the quality of our offerings and tailor our online events more precisely to meet your specific needs. And now, without any more delay, I'm delighted to hand over the reins to Rüdiger. The stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name is Rüdiger Kügler, and together with my colleague Jörg Jans, we will show you in the next 60 minutes the strategies for lost licenses, how to recover a license, how to control a license. This is the 5th part of our webinar series about CodeMeter License Central. In the first 4 parts, we spoke about the basic settings, license central items, feature-based licenses, offline license transfer, and before we come to the lost licenses, let's have a small recap of the last webinars.
Yeah, welcome from my side too. And with the basic settings, we covered how to do the basic set of a new CodeMeter License Central, what to do with your individual firm code, what are the options there, what are the global settings that affect either all licenses or support processes. And those entries, by the way, will be checked to again and explained again. And we set up the container types. That's the place where the licenses can be activated to on the end user system.
Yeah, in the second part, we spoke about the CodeMeter License Central items. So we spoke about how to use firm code, product code, how to use the product item options to implement and realize your license models.
And because the second part only covered simple items, we did a deep dive in the third part with feature-based licenses, what to do if we have modular license options, how to do it with feature maps, module items, or bundles. And that was the third part.
And in the most recent webinar, the offline license transfer webinar, we showed you how to transfer a license from one computer or from one CmCloud license container to another one. There are two different options. One is the borrow option, which lends a license for, let's say, a couple of days, and then it automatically falls back. And the move, which is a permanent transfer from one, let's say, intermediate container, in most cases a dongle, to a target device, and then to stay there at a final target. Yeah, and with this, let's switch to the part number 5. And in part number 5, we speak about use cases and how to overcome lost licenses. And before we come to the lost licenses, let's think about how can a license be lost. And one option is a broken or invalid CmCloud license. The CmCloud license is a license container which is stored on your local device. It is bound to the local device. It is connected to the local device. And of course, there are some mechanisms to make sure that an evil attacker is not able to reset a device, to manipulate such a container. So, and for this, we have some security mechanisms. And so one option is if the security mechanisms will be destroyed because the user is deleting some part or something we cannot write, or someone tries to reset the computer, then the license can become invalid. So this is something which really happens when someone tries to manipulate it. And the other thing I told you, the license is bound to a computer, and the binding could be changed because the user is changing the hardware of the computer. This is in the recent times a thing that we see very, very rarely. And so broken licenses is something that I have not seen on real computers that often. I see this on virtual machines. If a virtual machine is moved from one hardware to another hardware, then the binding is no longer the same, and so the binding breaks, and this is by design. And so broken licenses mainly occur if you move a license to a new computer, or if you move a virtual machine to a new computer, and invalid license if someone is wrong with the security.
Whereas a broken license is still available in CodeMeter Control Center on the system, there is another use case, which are deleted licenses. How can I delete a CmCloud license? Rüdiger explained they are stored on the hard drive or on the system. So if you reset your system, format the hard drive, or you have a hard disk crash, then of course all the files containing the CmCloud license information are gone, and then you have really no more access to this information.
So next use case, a broken dongle. Also something which happens very rarely. So it looks like I got a rarely used use cases. And but for instance, if you connect a USB dongle to a computer, and then you really put a lot of pressure on it, then of course you can break it. And we got a few of this broken dongles back. But I remember this was 5 years, 10 years ago, so a long time ago. I also remember there was one dongle in a fire in Australia, which was also 10 years, 15 years ago, but this dongle still worked. And so broken dongle is also something which happens very, very rarely.
And the other use case concerning dongles is more common because it's a physical device connected to a system, and for especially the smaller ones can get lost. And if the dongle is lost, all the licenses stored on this device are no longer accessible. So this is something that happens more often. The legendary use case was, for example, in the support, my dog ate the dongle and then the licenses have been gone.
Yeah, and the last use case is about CodeMeter Cloud credentials. So the CodeMeter Cloud container is using a credential file, so which is imported on your local device. And what happens if this credential file is lost, or you want to use it on a new device and you don't have this file? And so you have no access to the credential file, and we show you we explain you how to get the credential file once again.
And the last use case concerning cloud credentials is you suspect someone got hold of your credentials and use your licenses on another system, and then you need to do something to prevent this and have your licenses back for yourself. So that have been the use cases that we usually have for support cases, and now we do a little demo and show you what to do in CodeMeter License Central, how to set all the things up, and of course show it what to do. The first part that we want to cover is the license restore, and there we have two options. One is a manual license restore, and the other one is the automatic. And Rüdiger, I think we start with the manual one.
Correct. In my License Central, I turned off all the automatic license restore options. And by the way, our recommendation is if you have a very low-cost software, then you don't want to create multiple or many support effort. And in this case, you should or you could use the automatic license restore options to just minimize the support effort. If you have an expensive, high-price software, in this case, our recommendation is to not trust your customer, but to rely on the manual options. And so saying there's no automatic license restore. And as soon as a customer comes and says, oh, I lost my license, then you can click on the button manually license restore and do it like I show you in the next minutes now. And so for low-cost software, typically automatic restore, yes. For high-price software, no automatic restore, but the manual restore. But let's take a look into License Central. I prepared already my browser. I will log into License Central with the stored password. So, and to see the process, let's start from the scratch. So we will have a new order. Let's say customer number 9997. I simply randomly choose it. So I create a license for software. Let's say we want to have the sample Notepad single user. It doesn't matter which type of software we want to use. Okay. So this is the license that you created. So this is something we have shown you in the, I think, part 2 of our webinars. Then you send the ticket to your user. The user goes to your the user goes to the end user portal, enters this ticket number, activation code, product key. So there are multiple words for this. You see the user can activate the license. I will click on activate license. In this case, I choose a CmAct license. Get container automatically, great. And so this will now download a template, will create a virtual container on my hardware, which is bound to the hardware. Will create a context file, which includes the fingerprint of the hardware, send it to License Central. License Central creates the update, marks the license as activated. The update is imported on my local device, and then a receipt is sent back so that I know the license is there. So due to the fact that in my settings, I activated rehost licenses, so you can deactivate the license and activate it somewhere else. We still see the button rehost license, but there's no restore, reconnect, activate, reactivate, because the license is activated and cannot be activated a second time.
Yeah, and now I would say we simulate a lost or deleted CmContainer. In this case, we use the simplest of all options. We just delete it. By the way, this remove button is only available in the SDK, so your users cannot easily delete containers with all the licenses that are contained in there. So now the license is lost. The rehost button in Web Depot is still there, but if Rüdiger tries it, he gets an error message that the container is no longer available. So what to do now? That's the classical support case. And a support user then usually needs some information from the customer, a customer number, a ticket number. Best case would be the CmContainer number, but as it is gone, usually it's not that easy for the customer to get this information.
So now let's assume I'm the ISV and Jörg is the customer. So and Jörg has called me, ring-a-ling-a-ling. My license is lost, and so I'm asking Jörg now, okay, first, who are you? Maybe you have a customer number, 9997. Maybe he has the first part of the ticket, YCWYZ, or he has the container number. Here you see it in this error message. And so Jörg has some hint about what is the license. So let's say Jörg can tell me the ticket. Or let's say you can tell me the first characters of the ticket, and then I would go to search license. I would enter the first number of the ticket number, the first digits. Then I see the license here, and there are two important things. One thing is I can find the complete ticket number, and this is what I need to authorize the manual restore. Or I can go to the item itself, and in the item itself, we see the complete history. We see the item was created, it was activated, the activation was delivered, and I told you, you create an update file, then you get a confirmation, and we send the confirmation back. It was confirmed, so we see the history of the license here in the license history. And when we go to get license, the place where we can authorize a reactivation, here we enter the ticket number, so we need a ticket number here. And then also here we can see the activations. In this case, we only see the activations, deactivations, confirmations here. And you see that it was activated and confirmed. So this is one step in here in this view. In the other view, we saw the two detailed or the more detailed information about the two-step process, which is here shown as one step. And so we say, okay, everything is fine. This user did it once. So Jörg, I trust you that this was really an accident. And so I will go and say authorize activation. I can say I authorize one. So, and after doing this, now let's switch back to Jörg.
Now I need to go back to CodeMeter Web Depot or the tooling of my choice, enter the ticket again, and then I see this button Restore Licenses. And with this Restore Licenses, I can do a second activation of the same license without doing further deactivation. And that's what we call in our wording reactivation. So we differentiate between regular activations and reactivations. The steps are the same in the end. So everything is done again. A new container is created. Update file is requested from CodeMeter License Central, imported into the container. And now you see the license is back again on my system, and I could rehost it again, and especially I can work again with it. Thank you, Rüdiger.
Okay, now let's go to the ISV view. You remember I'm the ISV and Jörg is the software user. And so when I go to the get license page, we will now see that activations. We have a confirmed activation in the first container. And 4 minutes later, we have a confirmed activation on the second container. So maybe if Jörg tries to do the same again with me, and I see, okay, this was done already a couple of minutes before, then maybe I would ask him if the license is really lost, or ask him other questions, or ask him to send me a letter where he confirms that the license is really lost. And so this is here a very good overview. And of course, we also see the similar information in the license history. So we go to search license. So if we want to find the license history, we need to search for the license. I think it's quite easy and understandable. And then here we see it was created. It was activate delivered, activate confirmed, blacklist automatically requested. This is something that we will discuss in a couple of minutes after we have seen the automatic settings. And then reactivate authorized, reactivate delivered, and reactivate confirmed.
And that was the automatic, the manual process where we say do it for high-priced software. And now let's check what you can do for low-cost software where you don't want to have all these steps Rüdiger showed. There are different points where you can enter this information in CodeMeter License Central. The first one would be the firm code settings. There you can define how many activations or additional reactivations you provide from the beginning. It's a wording thing. They state maximum activation count, but in fact it means how many activations plus reactivations I can do. So a value from 2 would be I have 1 activation plus automatically 1 reactivation. But we don't recommend to do this in the firm code settings because this value is in the end only taken as preset. The real definition is in the item. So you can go to any item and say for this item I want to allow automatically restores or I don't want to do this. And this is for every container type you support set individually. Same thing with the wording. It's not an activation count. This is a little bit misleading. You don't have two activations. You have one activation and one reactivation if you say I put in two. And you need to keep in mind, you know the CodeMeter universe, but very often the end user doesn't know what will happen. He only sees, oh, I have a second activation and I do this.
Yeah, and if you have multiple container types, the recommendation would be to use the same amount of activations and reactivations for all the container types. It would be possible theoretically to say for the dongle, if the dongle is lost, I don't give you a reactivation, or for the cloud container, but I give you a reactivation for the CmAct license. But this is something that best practice is if you use this, and as we mentioned before, only for low-cost software, we recommend this. If you use this, then let's do the same for all of them. By the way, this change does not take effect on already created licenses. So if I change this in an item, it will only affect licenses which are created with this item from now. And so all the existing licenses are still not reactivatable. So only new created licenses. I will simply save this with temporarily item ID, because I don't want to destroy my default settings. So I have now an item with which offers me an automatic restore, and I will simply create a license for this. This, and 9997 was my customer ID. I click on OK and OK. So, and now let's go back to the end user part. And we will activate this license. I think we can use the same container. I click on the CmAct license. I will reuse the container which is connected. And if I click on Activate Now, what do we see? We see now that the Restore button is available immediately, because, as I told you, we have two activations, which means one activation, one reactivation. It doesn't mean two licenses in parallel. It means two generations of the same license. And so the Restore button is already available now. And maybe let's click on the Restore button and let's try to do this. And typically, you cannot create a new container, but in my settings, just to show you that I can have the old license as well, I can say, okay, I accept the conditions for restore, create a new container. And in this case, I'm not the good guy. In this case, I was the evil guy. That's why it was me and not Jörg. And in this case, I created a duplicate of the license. And so what we saw a lot of things. One thing is that we saw we can do the reactivation once without interaction with the ISV. And the other thing is, I'm now the evil guy, and now I have the license twice. I have two CmAct licenses or two CmAct containers, and I have my sample Notepad basic user here. And in the other container, I have exactly the same license. I have it twice, because you remember that there was another license in this container.
And this opens up the question, what happens to the old container or the old license if someone does such a reactivation? In the manual process, you usually have checks for this. But in the automatic type, you don't do this, because you don't want to have support issue and there support effort, and therefore you need to define something in CodeMeter License Central to do something against the bad guys. And therefore we have this reactivation behavior. There is one setting where you can define what happens in case such an reactivation is done. And if we go to the global settings, it's in the second block, automatic actions, and there you have three different options. No automatic action is the worst of all, because in this case you hardly have a chance to get these things corrected automatically in the background. So you should choose at least one of the other two. Either set the container on the blacklist. Setting a container on the blacklist means the next time this container interacts with CodeMeter License Central, it will be locked. The licenses are still in there, but the end user cannot work with them any longer, because the container is locked, and CodeMeter runtime says, oh, this container is locked and I will not use this. The other option, which is not as drastic as locking the whole container, which affects all licenses, so there is just to withdraw this one license that has been reactivated. But our recommendation is to use the blacklisting, because then you can discuss this with your customer, and there are cases where a dongle is reappears, and then you can do something against this locked license or unlock it again.
So if you select the container blacklist, there's something which tells you, oh, there's another option, generate lock license for blacklisting. And with License Central, we told you there is an auto update. And auto update means that you can provide an update for one dedicated container, and your software or web depot or portal can automatically detect, oh, this container is connected. There's an auto update for this. We don't need a ticket for this auto update. And then we can import the license and new licenses auto update to the container without needing to have a ticket. And so my recommendation is usually, if you set previous container on blacklist, you should also create a lock license for blacklisting. I already did this. I did a item ID, which is very close to the item IDs I'm using in my licenses. I've used a name which is very similar. So, and now let's check what did this or what was done.
Oh, you remember Rüdiger already did a reactivation for the license which is in the other container. So I expect that in CodeMeter License Central, the previous container with the 220 on the end is already on the blacklist, because there was this automatic reactivation. And if we look into this CmContainer section in CodeMeter License Central in the blacklist, we see exactly the entry for this license. So we see there was a reactivation for this container, and because the settings of CodeMeter License Central, which we use, was already set on blacklist, this container has been set on the blacklist.
Exactly, it's on the blacklist and nothing happened so far. If you take a look here, we see that this already happened 2 times. It happened the first time when we authorized a new activation, and then the first container was put on the blacklist. And with the automatic stuff, we were added on the blacklist when the reactivation took part. So this is the different thing between the manually and the automatic process. In case of the automatic process, it happens when the customer does the reactivation. In case of a manual process, it already happens when you authorize this. So, and now we see it was placed on the blacklist, but the lock was not sent, the lock was not validated. So, and let's simply go to the user side. And as user, there's this auto update. And let's check, there's no auto update for the still valid container. And if we check auto update for the lost container, we will see that there is an update which is called sample notepad basic license. And of course, that's what I here click in the portal is something that you could implement into your software, so that your software activation wizard or your software checks this auto update available frequently. This is also a good thing for subscription. So it means you have the same process to roll out a subscription, to renew a subscription, that you have to lock a license, to remove a license. So this is very important. So for the user cannot see a difference between rolling out a real license update and rolling out a locking update. And I just want to show you something. And so in the license itself, or in the container itself, there's a counter we call the firm access counter. So, and usually API guide, let's simply check this. Usually your software will check out a license, and in this case, the license is a local license. It is 6,947,201,000, if I remember it correct. Put it so, and execute. So what we see, we have 1, 2, 3 licenses on our computer, and I can use all the 3 licenses. So if I want to make a crypt with the first handle, I get an OK. I get an OK with the second handle. I get an OK with the third handle. So all 3 licenses are there. All 3 licenses can be used. Release all handles. So, and now I'm the end user. I see, oh, there's an auto update, or your software automatically provides the auto update and says, I want to transfer the auto update. So, and this now will lock the container which was on the blacklist. So, multiple things we can check. The first thing is, let's check the blacklist here. And if you check the blacklist, we will see the lock license was sent, the lock license was validated. So we know that this container is now really locked. Second thing, let's take a look inside the container, and we see the firm access counter is now 0. This means this license is locked. And now let's simulate your software. Your software wants to access this. Access 1, 2, 3. And what we see is we can no longer get an access to this locked license. And so we have only one license remaining, and the 2 licenses in the blacklisted container are locked now.
Yeah, one remark regarding the auto updates. Rüdiger did it the way with the auto update in Web Depot. And this comes in handy, especially when you use software activation wizards, where you can check with the container against CodeMeter License Central. But you need to be aware that these auto updates are really executed anytime this container is used. So even if you activate a license from any different ticket, or if Rüdiger had tried to rehost the already stored license there, this auto update would have been applied first, and then the container would have been locked immediately.
And if you take a look into License Central once again, as software developer, we see the license was created, it was activated, delivered, confirmed. The blacklist was generated for this license, or for the container where the license was in. Then the reactivate was delivered to another container. The reactivate was done, and the blacklist was delivered to the first container. Maybe having the serial number of the affected container would be nice. Something we will discuss with the development team of the product. Yeah, and so this is the reactivation behavior, the blacklisting. How does it work, and how does it feel for you, and how does it look like for your customer?
Yeah, and with those 2 settings, you have a really good way to restore licenses if the user says they are lost. The main point with restoring single licenses is you could do this with different systems. So there is no need that you do the restore on exact the same system. So if the user complains the license is lost, maybe because he got a new computer, he could activate the license there as well. The downside of this thing is if you have a container containing many licenses, you need to manually allow a reactivation for any license that has been stored in this container. And for this use case, we have something additional. Sorry for
And before we come to this use case, let's have a few words on the project workflow. Let's come to this use case first, and then going back to the project workflow. This is what Jörg is calling the container restore, or Jörg introduced the container restore, and this is something which works on a dedicated machine. So if you want to restore the licenses on the same machine, there's a special workflow which is different to the workflow on restoring a license anywhere. And the container restore checks if this is the same machine, and then it creates a CmAct license on the same machine. And as I told you, we check if this is the same machine. This means this only works for CmAct licenses. This does not work for a CM dongle. This does not work for a CmCloudContainer. Doesn't work for a CmCloudContainer. And so this is something special for a CmAct license and the automatic container restore on the same machine. And for this, let's simply go to the settings and go to the container types. And in the container types for the my CmAct license, you see there is an automatic restore setting. And if I go to enable of this setting, I can define if I want to have this feature enabled, yes or no. If I want to have it manually enabled, I need to set everything to 0, and then I can activate it manually later, but we want to say we want to have it automatically. And so let's first check the matching mechanism. I told you it's on the same machine. If it is on the same machine, there are different recommendations how to identify the same machine, and this is something that you can define and set. And so in my case, let's say the computer name is required. So if you change the computer name, it's a different computer for me. The motherboard, does someone exchange the motherboard? Maybe yes, maybe no. So let's say the motherboard must be also still the same. The CPU, maybe I want to update my Windows 10 computer, a very recent topic, to a Windows 11 computer, and my CPU is not supported. Then maybe I go to my reseller and ask him if he can update the CPU. So maybe this is something where I say, okay, the CPU could be optional. If it would be nice if it would be the same. Hard drive, I think you could change your hard drive, so maybe it is also optional. And network adapter could also be changed optional. And so I would require from the 5 properties, 3 of them needs to match. So computer name and board still needs to match. CPU, disk, and network adapter, one of the 3. If one of the 3 is fine, then everything is okay. I could also say we will ignore them. And in this case, I would say only 2 matching features, and they need to match and ignore all the other 3. But I think a very nice setting would be something like having computer name and board on, and CPU, disk, and network on optional. In other cases, there's also the discussion the CPU should not be changed, or the board might be changed. So this is something where you can define your settings. Maybe Jörg has also a few words on his preferences.
And in my projects, I usually 4 out of 5, so the CPU must be the same, and disk or network adapter are optional because those are changed more often than the 3 other ones. But as Rüdiger said, this is up to you. You can decide what is the same computer for me. And then in case of a reactivation, CodeMeter License Central checks the information sent with the context file against the information stored inside of the database if it is still the same computer.
So, okay, so number of matching features 3. I think, let's say I want to upgrade my Windows 7 machine to Windows 11. That's why I exchanged the CPU. And number of initial restores. I can say I allow this automatically for the user. So maybe initial restore is 1, or if I want to authorize it later with manually, then I need to set it to 0. I can also say 66 if I want to do this, but maybe 1 is a very good idea. Another option is, let's assume this classroom use case. So I have I sell my software to a school, and once per week they reset the classroom, and after this they need to reactivate the license on the same machines. And so I would say after 7 days, you can get, so once per week, you can do the whole process. And I would say you can do this for 1 year for maximum 52 times. And so these are some limitations. You can set that initial amount, how many days it should wait until you get a second, and how many restores do you have in some more. Is this something that will be unlimited? In this case, if we click on unlimited, the user could restore his computer once per week. So this is the once per week setting. Maybe once per year, 365 days. And so this is something that you can do here. So after changing the setting, and when we now search on the container that was already activated, we see nothing. So nothing changed. So it's still no information. Here I go to the second container. So no new buttons, because as Jörg mentioned, for the license restore, the container restore is the same. It has effect only on newly created licenses on newly created containers. So and so now let's say we create a new order, customer ID 9997. I take a new license. Okay. So I have a ticket, and let's start with a clean setting. So I will remove the containers I have on my system. Remove license. Remove license. So I take the ticket number. I activate the ticket number. Activate license. Easy and simple. A process that we have seen already multiple times. While it is running in the background, I will create a second license. I will explain in a couple of seconds why I want to have two licenses in the same container. So, okay. Second license. Okay. And activate license. Same container. Create cool. So what did we do? We created two licenses. We activated the two licenses onto the same container. So two licenses, two times the same license. The two licenses have two different ticket IDs. And in License Central, we see there are two licenses. So now let's go through the process of the container restore.
Yeah, because with the manually license restore, we need to open up every single ticket. And since Rüdiger set it to automatic, I as user just need to go with one of the tickets into CodeMeter Web Depot, and now I have this restore button. Even so that the licenses are no longer there, because the container usually is gone if I do a restore. I have this restore option automatically. And as you see, Rüdiger tried it, and there is a check in Web Depot that if the container that obviously is lost is still there, it doesn't work. So you need really a lost container. The serial number that was used with any of the tickets should no longer be there. And in this case, you can restore the container. And now the serial number is used, and CodeMeter License Central gathers all the information of this CmContainer, detects multiple tickets, and reactivates all the licenses in the background. And if we now check the containers, you see there is a new container with a different serial number, but it still contains the two licenses. And if we would look into the license history of those two tickets or those two licenses, we would see that in both the reactivation is there.
So let's simply do this. I looked for this and I see here that created, activate delivered, activate confirmed, blacklist automatically requested, container restore delivered, container restore confirmed. And if I do this for the second license, I would exactly see the same.
And here we have the same mechanisms in CodeMeter License Central as with the single license restore. So the settings, withdraw or put container on blacklist are still done for every license affected by this container restore. That was the automatic way. Rüdiger already showed you or explained in the container type settings that if you want to do this not automatically, but want to have the option to do this manually, you need to set in the container type as least activate container restore and no initial restores. And from this moment on, you have an additional button in the container detail view. And there you can authorize this.
Yeah, what we see here is we see the initial number of restores, which we set to 1. We see the maximum number of restores, -1 is unlimited. We see the current number of restores, which was already once. So I already restored it once. And due to the fact of my settings that I cannot, or the user cannot do this automatically again, even not if he enters the old ticket, by the way. So let's simply show you, because we use the ticket KF, okay, not the KF. We need to use the ticket BW. If you ask yourself, why do I have a new ticket? This is the honeypot license, which will lock the old container if it would still be there. So we enter the original ticket, and also here we see that no container restore is possible, because if we do a container restore with two licenses, it is counted per container and not per license. Now let's go back to License Central, and let's say I will authorize one. Search container. I want to authorize a restore for one container. That's why I need to search this container. So I go here and I say restore container. So I authorize a restore. And as soon as I did this, in the background, the previous container is set on the blacklist. So the container 2526 is now 2526 is now set on the blacklist because I authorized the restore. In the user's view, we now see the restore license button, and we can press the restore license button. Of course, we need to remove the container really. By the way, this means also if the license becomes invalid or broken, and the serial number is still visible, in this case, you need to delete the container, or you need to help your user to delete the container so that it is really gone from this computer. And after this, refreshing the page, we can restore the license on the same computer. But as mentioned, it must be the same computer. If I would send the ticket to Jörg and Jörg would try to do this, you would get an error message that the computer has been changed or it's not the same computer, and that the license cannot be restored on his computer.
Yeah, that's the main difference between restoring a container and restoring a single license, because with the license restore, I can use any system. The container restore only works on the same computer. But with those three settings in CodeMeter License Central, you have a very effective way to do support processes and restore licenses. Of course, at any time you could just issue new licenses, but if you issue a new license, you lose the history, because now Rüdiger showed it to you. We always see in the original license that there was a reactivation, that someone allowed a reactivation. And if you just issue new licenses, which sometimes is the faster way, but you lose this connection, or you must hold this, store this connection somewhere outside of CodeMeter License Central, and therefore we suggest to use this license restore or container restore. And now we could come back to the project workflow, which I just forgot previously.
Yeah, the project workflow is something that we implemented in License Portal, which will come end of October 2025. And the project workflow is something that you can prepare a license for a container. So someone in the back office prepares already a ready-to-use container. And then he says, okay, and now publish everything. And when you publish everything, the licenses will be already pre-calculated. So, and especially for this workflow, let's assume there's a use case that Jörg and I need to exchange licenses. So I have a license for Word, Jörg has a license for PowerPoint, and now I need PowerPoint and Jörg needs Word. And so with the classical workflow, we need to do something like I need to deactivate my license, Jörg needs to deactivate the license, and after my deactivation, Jörg can activate it there, and after Jörg's deactivation, I can activate it. And if our administrator wants to do this, he needs to go around a lot, multiple times to do this. With the project workflow, our administrator could prepare everything and then say publish. And with this publish, there will be a push deactivation of the previous license from Jörg and from me. And then there will be activated automatically. So for our administrator, there's one click without going around. And then the licenses are pre-calculated and can be downloaded by Jörg and by me very easily. And so this is a little bit similar to the withdrawal, but doing a deactivation without needing to have a withdrawal, but at the end, only the license is gone. The container is not blacklisted. The license doesn't get end of life. And so this is the, let's say, the withdrawal light way of removing or moving licenses from one computer to another computer without getting a confirmation. Usually, you need to have a confirmation first. And if you use the project workflow without a confirmation, in this case, lost licenses are also no longer a big issue for you.
So for end users, it offers the most flexible way to get the licenses transferred to the computer, because some administrator on the back office side already set everything up, and I just need to download the pre-calculated update file for my container. There are some special support cases which happen every now and then, and one of them is the legendary unexpected state. Usually an unexpected state shouldn't happen very often for end users, because an unexpected state occurs if the information stored in CodeMeter License Central, or better said, one information stored in CodeMeter License Central, we will show this to you shortly, does not fit the container stored on the end user side. And this information is only changed with a programming operation. So an end user usually only uses one CodeMeter License Central, and therefore this value shouldn't be different to the one that is stored in CodeMeter License Central. But if you use different programming operations, like Rüdiger did now with programming something manually inside of his container, or on ISV side, if you have a test environment and productive environment and mix up the activation sequences and use a container on both license centrals, then this information is changed outside of the original CodeMeter License Central, and therefore you get this unexpected state afterwards.
Yeah, for this, we need to, or we use the firm update counter, because every change that you do or that someone does with your firm security box, so I can only do this change of the licenses in the container because I have a firm security box connected to my network. And if I do something and say, okay, I want to add another product code there, I want to change something, every operation automatically increases the firm update counter. That's why it's there, to make sure that the update was applied. And License Central knows the firm update counter and checks that the firm update counter has the expected value. And if it is not the expected value, then License Central reacts. And let's find out how License Central does this. We create a new order, customer number 9997 today. We simply create a license. We take the same one, doesn't matter. Okay, okay. So, and now we send the ticket to the user. The user enters the ticket here. The user selects the container, which is now in an unexpected state. So this is definitely now a real error. Oops. So internal error occurred. Please try again later. So this error should not occur because usually you don't have an unexpected state, and that's why internal error is okay here. So at least for me, internal error is okay because it's an internal error in the system. Someone with a firm security box, so someone from the ISV, made some shit. And I could not tell it with other words. There are no other words. So, and what can I do in this case? I can go to my license central. I can search the container. I see that the container is now here in the unexpected state. So, and in the container, I have the option to say, I want to accept the state. So, and by the way, what we see, there are two licenses here, and one license was not activated on the computer, on the container. So if we take a look here, we will see this. The two licenses are there, and the two manually created licenses. I can click on accept state. And typically our recommendation is to do a recycle, because if there is an unexpected state, all the licenses which are there might be no longer in the expected state. That's why it's called unexpected state. There might be additional licenses. Maybe I have removed the license. So I don't know what does my colleague who had the firm security box changed. And that's why my recommendation is to click on recycle. Okay. So, and now we could create a new license. Let's create a new license. 9997. This one. Okay, okay. So, and I swear, I have not checked this workflow before the webinar. So what we see is there's a new license. There is this container, which was unexpected state. And Jörg told you that auto updates will be applied automatically. So my expectation is now, License Central will find out the container was in unexpected state, it was accepted. There's a recycle command, so we will recycle the container, meaning deleting every license, and then we will activate the newly created license. So this is what I expect, what should work now.
Yeah, I expect the same thing. So the 4 licenses that are currently in the container vanish. the two licenses that have been applied by CodeMeter License Central will be destroyed there, because a recycle means I didn't have a reactivation of the license. It was just deleted, so it is no longer usable. I cannot allow a reactivation or can do anything with this license again. And you see in the container now there is only one license. The firm update counter has changed to a higher value. That's the point with the recycle, that the firm update counter, or with the accepting the state, the firm update counter is set to a higher value, and with the recycle everything is deleted. So one remark regarding accepting an unexpected state. There is one setting in CodeMeter License Central in the global settings which you should never ever turn on, and this is accept such states automatically. Because if you do this automatically, that what Rüdiger showed you now may occur somewhere in the future, because in the meantime CodeMeter License Central has accepted an unexpected state and you didn't realize this. And therefore you should never turn this on. Always, if you have an unexpected state, analyze this situation and do the right things. And usually the best way to come out of this unexpected state is exactly what we showed you. Accept state manually, recycle the CmContainer, and then create new licenses to restore the contents of the container as it was in your CodeMeter License Central beforehand.
Okay, and now Jörg told you that the licenses are end of life, and so let's now take a look. And if a license is yellow, then the license is recycled, or recycled means end of life. And so what we see, the latest license, of course, is there, it's activated there. Then this license, this was a dummy license which did the recycling. And then the two licenses which were there are also end of life and recycled. And quite interesting, the license that we wanted to activate there, which we would not be able to activate, gets also recycled, and so it's also end of life. Interesting to know. By design, I would have expected it in a different way, but this is interesting to know that even the license which were not activated, but where we did the attempt, is now no longer available, and is now, you can no longer activate this license.
And that have been two of the special cases we wanted to show you. Another one is the CmCloud credentials. CmCloud credentials by design is not really related to CodeMeter License Central, but you still have support cases with the cloud credentials. And if you have one of those two cases, either I forgot the cloud credentials or I suspect that someone uses my CmCloud credentials, then there is always the way to reset those credential files. So the credentials files in the end just contains a secret communication way from CodeMeter runtime to the CodeMeter Cloud container stored in the WIBU cloud. And every cloud container has one credential file. And if you reset this, all old connections will be invalid immediately. And only the one with the new credential file can use this. And therefore, you can always go to the CmCloud dashboard, look for the CmContainer, create a new credential file. With this, the old one gets invalid. You hand out the credential file to the end user, and he can work again with this license. That's the way with the CmCloud credentials.
Yeah, and last but not least, if an activation-deactivation process was done offline, or if the connection was interrupted, there's the option to continue this. So in the background, we create a context file, we upload a context file. Then License Central calculates the update file. And if the connection breaks here, the update file will be calculated in the background until it's ready, and then you can download it. And so you can start again here. If you just downloaded it, but you did not import it to the container, you can redo the download. If you already imported it, you can create the receipt and upload the receipt. And this is automatically implemented in Web Depot and License Portal that you can continue with a not finished activation or deactivation. This is also available via API. So in parallel to checking for auto updates, you could also check for not completed activations and complete them in your software activation wizard.
Yeah, and now we are through with CodeMeter License Central. We showed you everything in the last 5 webinars, not the last 5, in the 5 webinars of this series, how to set it up correctly, how to create items, define items, license models, modular license models, what to do with license transfers, and what to do with support cases. And of course, there is not the one way to use CodeMeter License Central. In nearly each project I do with a customer, especially the larger customers, there are differences how to use CodeMeter License Central. But we try to give you a very good guideline what you can set up, what are the consequences if you do those settings. And we always hinted to the best practices that we use in our projects.
Yeah, it's time for questions, and I see there were some questions in the chat. Can I allow an additional activation for recycled licenses? I think this came already very early, and the answer is no. We already explained that if a license gets recycled, then it's end of life, and so there is no way to authorize another reactivation. Can a CmCloudContainer have more than one credential file?
No, by design, a cloud container has exactly one credential file. So if you reset it, all other connections will be invalid. This is no problem with a so-called personal container. A personal cloud container is user-bound. I can use it on 3 different devices, and if you reset this connection because I think someone uses it or I lost it, then I just need to reapply it on every container. It's a little bit more complex with enterprise container, and I think Rüdiger can explain why.
Yeah, with enterprise containers, there are 2 options. One option is administrator imports the credential file on a license server, and all the users simply consume the licenses from this license server. In this case, it's quite easy. The administrator changes the credential file and he imports the credential file immediately after doing this on the license server. The change does effect and the users doesn't even recognize anything. The other option is that instead of using a local license server as a proxy server, all the users have the credential file and all the users use the cloud server directly. And in this case, if an administrator changes the credential file for this cloud license or cloud container, in this case, all the users will no longer have a connection because they have an old and invalid credential file. And for this use case, and this is the 3rd use case where we come back to the activation wizard, your software could trigger an activation wizard. The activation wizard could be implemented, integrated in your software. And this software activation wizard finds out, oh, there's a cloud container. This cloud container is invalid. Can I log into license portal? Because you need to enter your credential data, and maybe you can store this somewhere in the registry or hidden on the hard drive. And then the software activation wizard tries to log in with your username password. And if you are still a member of this group, because the use case is, oh, we want to remove one member from the group, and so we delete it from the group, and then we reset the credential files. And so I'm still a member of the group, and then the new credential file can be downloaded, and now the license is there again. So for the user, it could be something like I start a software, it takes 1 second more, 1.5 seconds more, and then it starts like usual, and the user does not even see that the credential file was exchanged in the background.
And there is one more question regarding my special friend, the project workflow, because some of the listeners thinks it may duplicate licenses.
Yes, so you could use the user could use the project workflow to duplicate licenses. Not to duplicate license, but to have the older activation of the license still present, but this is similar to the workflow with the reactivate. This is similar to the container restore. If you are able to, or if the old container is still there, and then you still could use the license. But the thing is, you can control it and you can see it in License Central. So in License Central, you see the history of the license and you see if there was the deactivation really confirmed or if it was just delivered. And so you have a history of all the licenses, and you can either implement your rules that you say your user can do this so often, can do this only once per year, can do this 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, or you can make some alarming mechanism with our great notification dispatcher, which is Jörg's one of the greatest tools for him. And with the notification dispatcher, we can send a warning, the user has now rehosted the license 5 times, and the 4 previous times were not deactivated. It looks like someone tries to trick you.
Yeah, and with like all the other settings in CodeMeter License Central, is up to you if you use it or don't use it. And if you use this feature, then you are aware that this situation may occur. So now we are through. There are no more open questions in the chat. Thank you very much for your time. We took a little bit longer, I would say, as usual. Thank you for listening in. Maybe we meet each other in one of the projects you do in the next time, or you listen in one of the next webinars. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a nice week.
Yeah, see you, hear you somewhere in the world at some times. See you. Bye-bye.